Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something called the 3-2-1 speaking trick to help you completely stop rambling under pressure. We've all been there, right? You're sitting in a meeting, just minding your own business, and suddenly someone turns to you and asks for your take on a topic you are absolutely not prepared for. It's that universal fear, the sudden spotlight, the absolute deer in headlights dread of just talking in circles because you were put on the spot. It feels awful. But what if I told you there's a way to basically eliminate that fear entirely? So let's actually look at what happens to us when we're put on a spot. Just picture it. You get hit with a question out of nowhere, zero prep time, and immediately your heart rate just skyrockets. You start talking incredibly fast just to fill the dead air. You're stringing together all these random thoughts, hoping anything makes sense. You repeat yourself, you start sweating, and eventually you just kind of trail off into this agonizingly awkward silence. It's pure panic. And frankly, it makes you look like you lack confidence, even when you absolutely know your stuff. There's this brilliant communication teacher, Vin Jiang, and he describes it perfectly. He says when you're unprepared, quote, your brain hits the panic button. You open a dozen browser tabs in your head. I literally love this analogy because it is just so accurate. You're scrambling, trying to read all 12 of those open mental tabs at the exact same time. And when you try to verbalize that chaos, you just end up rambling. Your brain is basically crashing, just like an old computer, from having way too many tabs open at once. So why do we do this? Well, Vin notes that people ramble because they simply don't have a framework. In fact, he ran a public speaking workshop in Sydney recently and found that less than 10% of the audience actually used communication frameworks. 90% are out there relying on absolutely nothing. So think about that. That means if you can just master one simple framework to fall back on, you instantly give yourself a massive competitive advantage. You're going to look so much more confident and articulate than the vast majority of people in the room. All right, so let's slow things down for a second and look at the exact solution Vin shared at that workshop. It's called the 3-2-1 framework. This is a remarkably simple tool you can use for Q&As, throwing together social media content, or literally any time you have zero time to prep. The 3-2-1 stands for 3 steps, 2 types, and 1 thing. By having the structure locked and loaded in your brain, you give yourself something incredibly solid to lean on, completely bypassing that terrifying mental scramble we were just talking about. Let's actually see what this looks like in the real world. Vin tested this live with his workshop audience. He basically told them, shout out a totally random topic and put me on the spot. And the audience's choice? Avocados. Which is incredibly random, but honestly, it's the perfect test. Let's watch how this 3-2-1 trick instantly organizes an off-the-cuff response about, of all things, a piece of produce. Okay, so without a framework, here is exactly what your brain does with the topic of avocados. It goes into total overdrive. You're thinking, wait, do I talk about it being green? How do I know if it's ripe? If it turns black in the fridge, can I still eat it? Wait, do I add tomatoes for guacamole, Mexican style? Your brain pulls up all these random facts at the exact same time, you completely blank, and you get tongue twisted. This right here, this mental clutter, is exactly what we need to avoid. But here is how we cut right through that noise. The easiest place to start is with just the one thing. If you're put on the spot, you don't have to say everything, right? Just pick one super easy point. So Vin immediately says, the one thing about avocados is it's incredible on a keto diet. He casually mentions it's a high-protein source and great for that lifestyle, and boom, done. He delivers an articulate, highly focused answer out of thin air just by leaning on that one thing. Or you could pivot and use the 2 types variation. Notice how neatly this organizes your thoughts? Vin says, well, there are 2 ways to have an avocado. You can smash it on toast, or you can eat it like a fruit. And using a bit of his signature humor here, he points out that people who eat an avocado like an apple are absolute animals. But jokes entirely aside, look at what happened. His brain had a clear, immediate structure to go to. It sounds completely prepared, even though he just made it up. And finally, let's look at the 3 steps option. If someone asks you about avocados, you can literally just give them 3 steps on how to prep one. Step 1, cut it in half and get the skin off. Step 2, mash it. Step 3, season it with salt, pepper, and lemon. Unreal, right? Your brain can do that instantly because the 3-step structure acts like a perfectly paved road for your thoughts. It completely keeps you from veering off into that messy, rambling territory. Now, I know what you're probably thinking right now. You're saying, okay, sure, a professional communication coach can pull this off, but can I actually do it under real pressure? Totally fair question. So let's look at how Vin proves this concept. He actually brings a student up from the audience to do this exact same exercise. And just to simulate that real-world heart-pounding pressure, He tells her he's going to give her a random topic, and she has exactly 3 seconds to start her answer. So the pressure is on. The random topic he hands this student is travel. Now, just think about how ridiculously vast the topic of travel is. Without a framework, you would instantly panic. Your brain would go, oh my God, travel? Like, I hate airports, they're the worst. Wait, where do I even begin? Let's see how the student handles this massive concept using the 3-2-1 trick with a 3-second countdown literally ticking in her ear. The very moment she's prompted, she executes the one thing perfectly. She confidently says, the one thing about travel is it's magnificent, you can go anywhere you want. Just a perfect, punchy, declarative sentence. By doing that, she gave her brain one single focal point, completely bypassing the anxiety of trying to summarize the entire global travel industry in a single breath. Then, she doesn't even skip a beat, she moves right into 2 types. She says 2 types of travel is you can travel regionally and you can travel internationally via a plane. She took this massive, wildly overwhelming concept and instantly categorized it into 2 neat, digestible little boxes. It was so smooth that the audience at the workshop actually broke into spontaneous applause right there. But wait, she wasn't done yet. She finishes off the drill by flawlessly running through the 3 steps. She looks at the room and says, 3 steps to travel is plan it, book it, go. It is so incredibly simple, but man, is it effective. She got a massive round of applause because it legitimately sounded like a polished, heavily prepped presentation. She built this incredibly coherent answer out of absolutely nothing. And honestly, here's the most fascinating part of that entire interaction for me. When Vin was counting down to 3 to simulate that intense pressure, she actually started answering before he even finished counting. She just stepped right up and essentially gave this vibe of, I got this, man. She was so wonderfully confident having that framework in her head that she didn't even let him finish his sentence. She completely owned the room. And that moment really highlights the ultimate transformation we're talking about here. Frameworks don't just magically change the words coming out of your mouth. They completely alter your body language and your mindset. When you're unprepared, you're scared. You shrink back, you try to avoid the microphone. But when you have a framework, you're actually excited. Vin pointed out that his student physically walked right up and stepped into the mic because she felt so ready. Shifting from absolute fear to genuine excitement, that is the true power of having a fallback plan. So, as we wrap up this explainer on Vin Jiang's brilliant strategy, I really want to leave you with this. You now have a proven, dead simple tool to stop your brain from opening a dozen chaotic browser tabs the next time the pressure is on. 3 steps, 2 types, or 1 thing. So what's the one thing you're going to say the next time you get put on the spot? Keep this framework in your back pocket, trust the structure, and step into your next conversation totally ready to impress.